our country is at a point where I think we have so many individuals here that have lost any kind of humbleness and humility, especially in politics. And I lament about this all the time, but I couldn't wait to get to this interview this morning with Amity Shlaes. She is the author of the New York Times bestsellers, Calvin Coolidge, The Forgotten Man, The Greedy Hand, and most recently, Great Society. And she chairs the board of the Calvin Coolidge Presidential Foundation. She has an argument out there that I happen to agree with, by the way, that presidents should apply the word great to America's institutions and citizens, not presidential greatness, self-greatness, or great government endeavors. And Amity joins us this morning here to talk about that and why Calvin Coolidge is probably a good model of that. By the way, Calvin Coolidge, Martin McKenzie's favorite president. Good morning, Amity. How are you?
Good morning.
Well, it's great to have you here this morning. And, Calvin Coolidge could be a great model for our presidents today, especially because, when you look at Calvin Coolidge, he may have been one of the best deadpan presidents that we ever had in our country. And yet there was a certain sense of humility and humbleness about him I don't think that necessarily exists today. Is there?
Well, yes, it exists, but it's not showcased, and sometimes you have to wonder why. But what is interesting about Coolidge, this is a president who served 100 years ago in the 1920s. Situation was rather similar. We had just come out of a crisis. The Republican Party in specific had come out of a crisis. They had a scandal called Teapot Dome, which we barely remember what that is, but
right.
It's important because we were trying to privatize, basically, government resources, and the way the government did it besmirched the very idea of handing resources over to private hands because the Harding administration gave away special sweetheart leases to its friends or friends
right.
of its friends. So
right.
Coolidge comes into office, Harding died, alas, and has to clean it all up. And the way he did it was through service, not showboating.
Yeah, we throw the word around an awful lot today. I mean, we really do. You think back in the 60s, the Great Society. Donald Trump used it just a couple of times. He would use those kind of glittering generalities all the time. Make America great again. And that word great has such a wide range of things you can apply to it. So here comes Coolidge that says, I'm not going to talk about great. I'm just going to kind of quietly go about my business. Is that a fair way of looking at it?
The problem with great is that you have a lot of slippage. You say you want a great America, right?
Right.
Right. But then it becomes the character himself or herself is great. It turns into a celebrity greatness. And you notice
yes.
President Biden used the word great a lot, too. Lyndon Johnson, it's a bipartisan habit. You end up becoming the greatness instead of the work becoming the greatness. It's the American institutions that have to be great. What Coolidge did, he had ambitious goals, some of us might call them great, such as having the tax rate on the income tax, but he didn't talk about great as much as talking about incremental improvement. That is, he was like a car dealer who underpromised and over-delivered. And you end up liking that car deal, and you go back to that car dealer for the next car because, wow, it ended up being a better deal than you thought. It sometimes breaks down into people you want to know the third time you see them and people who wow you the first time, right?
Yeah.
So Coolidge was the kind of person who grew on you. And that we all know in business that's what you want to be. There are plenty of business people listening to this who have a service devotion in their business. They want to be the reliable company whom people come to love over time. That's what the way Coolidge operated. And by the way, he restored the country after a scandal by doing that because he built trust in the polity in that way. Wow.
I think that's such an important thing because we have such a bombastic government now, and so many people have so little humility. And the one thing that, having been a history teacher for 25 years of my life, that I loved about Coolidge was his humility. As I look back now and compare him to other presidents, Donald Trump is never going to be, characterized as necessarily having a lot of humbleness. I mean, that's not his style. It wasn't what he did. I'm not saying that as a criticism. I'm saying that as an observation. But here with Coolidge, you said something so important, under-promise and over-deliver. I mean, that's what we need to have more of in our society, because we have a lot of overpromising and underdelivering, and we call that politics as usual now, don't we?
Well, yes. I mean, think about when we talk about cutting the budget, politicians they say, cut the budget, that sounds good. They actually usually mean particularly in Washington, reduce the increase, right?
Right.
Well,
Slow
that's
it down.
kind of betrayal. It's like a credit card that sounds good but has a 20% interest rate. It's what we do, by the way, routinely with kids, with college loans. College sounds good, but we saddle them with a lot of debt. It's a terrible civic practice, because you cut trust each time. You make cynics of young people. So what Coolidge did was the reverse, and we could do that. I mean, when you say cut the budget, cut the budget. People do come to love leaders who are reliable and honest with them.
Yeah, and I think the doing part has been neglected a lot over the years. I thought, for all the criticism of Donald Trump tried to do a number of things. The problem was that I think sometimes the semantics of talking about, well, this is the greatest thing ever, kind of got in the way of some of the accomplishments that he did have. And I think if a lot of these people went about their business the way Coolidge did, which was, okay, we're going to try to get some things done here, we're going to quietly go about our business, that's what we need. But I think, juxtaposed to Trump coming in, you had President Obama, who many would say was kind of apologizing for America, and here comes Trump and says America is great again. We need that little boastful side, but we don't need it all the time. Is that a fair analysis?
There are two sets of voters. There are the voters who voted for the policies, and there are the voters who voted for the man, particularly the man who was wronged. Who voted out of anger or revenge, more on the populist end of it, and people who voted for the policies. Well, I want a Conner-Center Supreme Court. I think political correctness has gone too far. And actually, if you analyze the recent election, what people said was, well, when it was about the policies, the GOP did pretty well. When it was about the man, they did less well than some expected. And it's just a pity that the anger part ended up being showcased through the terrible events of January 6th. But there's still about a large share of the country that wants rational policy. And that's what the GOP ought to be doing, writing rational policy. Problem we've had lately is we have no platform. I mean, one thing that saved Coolidge is he just said, well, you know what? I mean, you're a history teacher. We wrote a platform in 1920. The platform said cut taxes and withdraw the government. Unfortunately, we besmirched that platform a little. Plus, our president happened to pass away. Disruption. I'm a lame duck, but I'm gonna pursue that platform, the fulfillment of it. Try and do it to perfection. I'm going to work very, very hard, and incrementally, maybe I'll get there. That cleaned up life for everyone, and Coolidge was enormously popular. He won an absolute majority, not just a mere plurality in the 1924 election on his own. So this is an underrated, method. And I think it has something to do, you're a history teacher, with the 17th Amendment as well. That is, we went to a more populist democracy country when we changed the way we selected senators.
Right.
Because senators picked other senators to be U.S. senators, that is, state senators did, before that amendment. And guess what? They picked people they knew. They picked people, regarding the fifth impression of the person, not the first, which was an offset to the new face congressional selection process.
Amity, it's been great talking to you this morning. Again, co-editor of a new edition of the autobiography of Calvin Coolidge. Where can people find that, Amity?
Well, you can buy it on Amazon, and I see the audio is just coming up, and you can buy it at CoolidgeFoundation.org, our Coolidge Foundation. If you want to support children, this book is for children or young people learning about Calvin Coolidge, please think of joining the Coolidge Foundation, even sending a small amount of money, because what we do is we teach kids about the president who didn't talk a lot and gave America plenty.
Yeah, how was that? Oh, another president walked softly and carry a big stick. Calvin Coolidge just walked softly, walked quietly, and got a lot done. Amity, it's been great talking to you this morning. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Always glad to talk to former teachers. Thank you.